Well, new right now on News 12, innovative ways to protect our vulnerable South Shore from this flooding. This was the topic of discussion at a meeting of the Long Island Regional Planning Council today, but it's not clear if any of the pricey projects will ever be approved.
Do we have to wait for Sandy #2 to come roaring by before we wake up?
10 years after Superstorm Sandy caused billions of dollars in damage in our area, researchers from Stony Brook University gave an update on a nearly 4-year study on how to prevent or limit flooding on our South Shore. The study looked at the feasibility of installing what are called sea gates across the inlets that dot Long Island's South Shore. The idea behind them is that they could prevent ocean waters from surging into the bay during storms.
Think of them as like saloon doors in a bar, but they're mainly open. So the inlets are open 24 hours a day, 99.9% of the time. But if a big storm is predicted to arrive, say a hurricane coming up the East Coast, before the storm arrives, these gates can be closed.
Various forms of sea gates are used in other places, as close as Rhode Island and as far away as England, even Russia.
During Superstorm Sandy, we had 3,800 homes flooded under 4 to 6 feet of water.
Robert Kennedy is the mayor of Freeport. He says he hopes to never see damage like what Sandy brought to his village ever again. He'd like the funding for sea gates in our area after visiting New Bedford, Massachusetts, where surge barrier gates installed in 1960 have proven very effective.
The city has not flooded since they installed these gates. They closed 2 hours before a named storm. They open them up 2 hours after a named storm. We need to put up those surge barrier gates to protect the South Shore of Long Island and fortify the barrier island. That's what needs to be done here.
The study also looked at baffles, kind of folded walls that could be built in our bays. They settle the water during storms, preventing them from flooding the shoreline. Costs for these projects could be prohibitive, but experts say Long Island's flooding problems are only likely to get worse.
The South Shore is vulnerable to storm surges and rising sea levels. And how much is the sea level going to rise by the end of the century? No one really knows. It could be 1 foot, 2 feet, or even worst case, 6 feet. That is a very serious problem.
Now, the study also concluded that a combination of sea gates and those baffles, the walls, would have dramatically reduced the flooding and damage from the storm surge of Superstorm Sandy.